On today's Join Us in France, what are the secrets to finding a great apartment in Paris? This is Join Us in France, episode 153. Bonjour, I'm Annie, and today I bring you a conversation with listener Phil Goldsmith, who shares his tips and secrets about how to find a great apartment for rent in Paris. Our next Paris tour is scheduled for October 1st through October 7th, 2017. We would love to have you join us in France, not only through the podcast, but also in real life. We keep the numbers low for our tour because we want our tours to be like no other tour you might have been on. We want you to experience France along with us, be part of the family, and then go home absolutely pumped for the months ahead. Paris in October is wonderful, and Paris in October with Annie and Elise is even better. All you need to reserve your spot is pay a €250 deposit, and then if you pay your deposit during the month of June, I will send you a coupon code so you get a nice chunk off of your balance payment. It's all explained in the Join Us in France newsletter as well. For show notes on this episode, go to joinusinfrance.com/153, the numbers 153, or look at your podcast app. You can read the show notes right there and click on the links as well. Now, please stick around after the end of my conversation with Phil to hear from Sue Walsh, who wants to share with you some of her favorite things about the inaugural tour, and we want to reminisce yet again. Hello, Phil, and welcome to Join Us in France.
Bonjour, Annie.
Bonjour. How are you today?
I'm fine. Thanks for having me on the show. I feel like I know you. I've been a listener since the beginning. I don't know. What is it, three years now or so?
Yeah. Well, it's lovely to talk to you, and I'm very grateful to people like you who take the time to share with the community about things that they know about, because, believe it or not, I don't know everything there is to know about France, and you wouldn't want to rely on me for every little detail. So today the topic of our conversation is going to be renting an apartment in Paris, specifically in Paris, but I guess a lot of that could be extrapolated to other places in France. So to get started, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how come you got to know so much about this topic?
Okay. Well, again, I hardly know everything about any topic, but one of my strong points, I guess, is knowing where to find the information. But the way we got into this is my partner Nancy and I have been traveling internationally for, I guess, about 10 years now. We started off with a bang. We went to China for 3 weeks. And since then, we've been to, 10 or 11 other countries. And I'm a city boy. I love to visit cities. Nancy's kind of an adventure traveler and likes to explore the wild places like Patagonia and the Galapagos Islands and so forth. So we do a mix of both kinds of travel. And we both went to Paris for the first time in 2010. Actually, she had lived in Europe for 3 years, I think, long time ago. But we went together in 2010, and then I had an opportunity to go back in 2015, and all that did was to whet my appetite for more, being the city boy that I am. So we have our next trip is in September, and we're going for a month,
wow.
followed by a week in Provence, which we have not been to.
Oh, that's great. And home for you is like Eastern U.S.?
Yeah, yes. We divide our time between Central Florida and Virginia Beach, Virginia, but we're both originally from the Northeast, Boston and New York.
Right. Very fun. Very good. Okay. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, well, what I was going to say is I'm a city boy, and so yeah, I like cathedrals and churches and monuments and museums, but what I really enjoy in the big cities, the great cities of the world, is to to observe the ordinary things that makes a city what it is. Watch the people, study the architecture, get the pulse of the city. And I think Audrey Hepburn had it right. Paris is always a good idea. So, well, that's part of the reason we're going back to Paris for a month.
Yeah. All right. So how do why an apartment and not a hotel, for example?
Okay. An apartment, what we found, and obviously we both traveled a lot and we stayed in a lot of hotels all over the world, but what we found in an apartment is that it gives you a more of a chance to explore and experience living like a local. Mm-hmm. You get to know in Paris, you get to know the patisseries and the boulangeries and the cafes. For several years, a long time back, I spent a lot of time in New York City on business, and I always stayed in the same area. And I got to know where to buy my newspaper and where to buy my bagels. And
right.
And it gives you a better feel for being a local rather than being an anonymous person in an anonymous hotel in an anonymous city.
Right.
You're also more likely to be in a residential area rather than a commercial area. There are, for example, there are not too many apartments for rent in the second arrondissement, which is a largely business and commercial area, but there are several hotels there.
Right.
So when you wake up in the morning, my idea is I'd like to be in a residential area and get out in the morning and not necessarily to eat in a cafe, but to walk over to the local boulangerie for a pain au chocolat and watch these amazing, I call them the men in green and in the jumpsuits washing the streets and the farmers delivering the produce and see what real people are doing in a real city. Yeah.
Well, that's an excellent point because by now, the places right around Notre Dame are either inhabited by very, very wealthy people, or they're for rentals. They're for short-term rentals. There's nobody left on the Ile de la Cité who is not a millionaire or a tourist.
Exactly.
That's fine. That's what happens in all of these areas. But you don't get regular French life if that's where you're staying. So
Right. It can also be money saving to a point. Now, you're not going to get a bargain basement rental, and we'll talk more about that later, but what you're actually getting is perhaps not so much saving money, but getting better value for your money. You can eat in if you want in an apartment. Again, in reality, not so much to save money, but to just relax.
Because you want to do that, yeah.
Exactly. And there are long stay discounts. Typically, when you go to the agency rental sites, you'll see weekly rates and monthly rates. And if you do the math, the monthly rate is about equal to 3 weeks of weekly rate. So if you can and want to stay a long time, you can save some more serious money. Our trip that's coming up, round numbers, the apartment we're renting is going to be about $160 a night, and I looked at equivalent hotels in the area, and they're in the $175 to $250 range.
Right. So obviously you get if you stay long enough, it's really worth it.
Right. And my bottom line is, you may hear me say this a couple of times, if you're going for 3 to 5 days, get a hotel. There's too much. Finding an apartment takes a long time. You can't just go on any random site and say, okay, I want a 2-bedroom apartment with a washer and dryer and in such and so an area. And then this is the missing part. There's no star rating. If you want to rent a hotel room, you can. Depending on the website, they all have some kind of rating system, and if you want more amenities, you ask for a 4 or 5-star hotel, and you get it. And there's no rating system for apartments, so you really have to do the research yourself.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you go through Airbnb, you will have lots of reviews. but that's still not the same as a rating.
Right,
Yeah.
right. The other advantage is that it's quieter and you get more space. French hotels, like most hotels, but especially in France, are very small. You're lucky if you get a single desk chair, if you will, so you can sit down and put your shoes on, so to speak. But if you want to relax, you're not going to find it in a hotel. And again, if you're only going for 3 or 4 days, that's fine. Yeah. Apartments are great for kids or extended families or a couple of couples. The 2-bedroom apartments are a little harder to find, but they are there, and most of them come with sofa beds. So you can put the kids in a sofa bed, or we're having a friend come with us on our upcoming trip for the first 10 days, and she's going to sleep on a sofa bed.
Right.
So,
yeah. That's that's a good point. That with bigger groups, you can probably find an apartment that will accommodate more.
Yes.
Yeah. And the other thing, I just want to mention that quickly. Yeah. If you book a Gîte de France, those are made for families.
Yes.
So I've never seen a Gîte de France that was not like where you couldn't sleep at least 4 or 5 people. So it's made for, mom and dad and 2 or 3 kids.
And those are mostly in the countryside as opposed to
They're a lot
being in the city.
Yes.
Yeah. Another advantage, you can use it as and not that you couldn't do this with a hotel, but because it's a little less expensive, you can use it as a base to explore other parts of Europe. We're going to do 2-day trips, one to Antwerp and one to Reims. And we're just going to leave the apartment behind and travel light.
Right.
And you don't, at $150 or $60 a night, you don't feel too bad about leaving it behind for a couple of nights.
Sure.
Whereas you wouldn't want to do that with a $400 hotel room.
That's true.
Now, there are disadvantages. I need to be honest. It requires a lot of research to find one because, as I say, although there are lots of websites, there's no star rating system. So you have to do the homework yourself to compare the different apartments. We'll talk about agencies in a minute, but there are some concerns sometimes about, is this a legitimate rental? And my word of advice here is, you could probably go on Craigslist and find someone who says he wants to rent his apartment, but you're really better off to deal with a reputable agency at some point.
Yeah.
2 bedrooms are hard to find, as I said. There are just fewer of them, and of course they're more expensive. But if you're a couple of couples, for example, or a family where you don't necessarily want the kids to stay on a sofa bed, they're there, and they're very, very useful. The apartment will be quirky or charming, depending on how you want to look at it. It's not a Residence Inn. It's not an Embassy Suites. It's not a garden apartment like you might be used to in the States. It could be in a 250-year-old building that's been converted into, chopped up into smaller apartments. So it will have its quirks. The first apartment we rented had spiral stairs. It was on 2 levels connecting the bedroom, which was actually downstairs, and the living area, which was upstairs. And the spiral stairs were, I'm not sure they were, it was a early 19th century building, and I think the spiral stairs they were wood, and they might have been original to the building. And every time we walked up and down them or crawled up and down them because they were so small, we thought it was going to just collapse into a pile of sticks.
So was this an apartment from the 60s and 70s?
From the 1960s? No, it was from the 1760s.
Oh, it was that old, okay.
1860s. Yeah, it was an old apartment, yeah.
I wonder why they put the like the living area upstairs. Well, it doesn't matter. We'll
again, they when they chop up, these were all larger apartments at one point, and so they probably within the last 50 to 70 years, as the rental thing came into play, they chopped them up into smaller and smaller pieces. And there was another apartment I looked at for our upcoming trip. It was a 2-bedroom apartment. It was beautiful. It had very nicely furnished, and the bathrooms and kitchens had been remodeled and very, very modern and all that. But the 2 bedrooms were up a very steep stairway without a handrail on the open side, and it had a second bathroom, which was very rare in Paris. But to get to the second bathroom, you had to go outside onto the terrace and then into the bathroom.
Yeah. Okay.
So, like I say, they're quirky.
Yeah.
Also be prepared for a security deposit, which for some people almost might seem like a deal breaker. Different agencies do it different ways. Some do it as a credit card hold. Mm-hmm. Some do it as cash. You give cash to the rental agent or the owner when you check in, and he or she gives it back to you when you check out.
Yeah.
Now, presumably you're not going to trash the apartment, so you'll get it back, but you got to be prepared for that. And sometimes there are, especially in the longer rentals, there are charges for insurance and cleaning and electrical service. They're not big charges, but just you got to be aware of what they are.
Mm-hmm. I'm assuming that they always list everything that they're going to ask you for.
Yes.
Yeah, so you know ahead of time.
Yes, it's on the websites, and they're pretty good about at least identifying what the charges are, and to the degree they can, how much they are. They might say, for example, there will be, for a month-long rental, there will be a $50 cleaning fee. But some of the month-long rentals also charge the electricity separately. And I don't even know how they do it. But somehow they charge you back for it. And again, it can't be that much money, but it's something that is a bit of an unknown.
I've rented an apartment in Paris, but we were only there, I think, 10 days. And so we didn't have to deal with that. Everything was included.
Yes, and most of them work that way. If you do what they call a weekly rental, which might mean it could be 2 weeks or 15 days, but they use the weekly rate, and that's all inclusive. It's when you get into the monthly rental, where some people may be there for a month, some people may be there for 2 months.
Sure.
That they start charging these separate things, because it becomes more like what we in the States would look like it as a lease on an apartment, as opposed to a short-term rental.
Yeah.
So agencies, there are countless agencies out there, and they fall into 2 categories. One is the direct rental platform or website like Airbnb, and the other is I think the correct term is managed apartments. Mm-hmm. So on the web, the direct rental websites or platforms, basically all the listing so-called agency is doing is posting on behalf of the owner the pictures and the price, and they collect the money, and they handle some part of the transaction.
Mm-hmm. Maybe the keys, probably.
They will have someone to give you the key. Yeah. Or if it's Airbnb, a lot of those are owner occupied, so you may in fact be meeting the owner when you pick up the key, and in Europe, there are 4 or 5 agencies that you'll be familiar with. They work in the U.S. too. There's one called VBRO, one called HomeAway, which I think owns VBRO. Airbnb, probably the best known. There's one called Home2Go. And then there's a whole group of local Paris New-York-based agencies that are more in the managed apartment business. They don't necessarily own the apartments, but they manage them on behalf of the owner. And they all seem to have the word Paris in them. I've used 3 of them. Paris Attitude, a la carte Paris, Paris Stay, Paris Perfect, Vacation in Paris, blah, blah, blah. If you Google Paris rental apartments or Paris vacation apartments, you'll come up with all of them. My sense is that, and this is just a personal opinion, but my sense is that they know the Paris market a little better. Their websites are designed for the quirkiness of a Paris apartment. Their descriptions are better. They will say, for example, the apartment is on the 3rd French floor,
right?
Which, as you know, to us Americans is really the 4th floor,
right?
Whereas some of the broader rental platforms will just say, "Oh, it's on the 3rd floor," and you have to figure that out yourself.
Well, yeah, because if it's a French owner,
exactly,
they may not even know that there's a difference. To them, they live on the 3rd floor. Like,
right.
What are you complaining about? I live on the 3rd floor. There you go.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So when you get to paying the cost, of course, there's the rental fee itself. There'll be some kind of some agencies use credit cards. Some require an international wire transfer, which is quite doable, but kind of a pain in the behind to do.
Yeah. Between the U.S. and Europe, it's really just bizarre because I've had to do this many times, and the reason why it's a pain is because American banks are the only ones in the world that don't use the same, you have the IBAN and the whatever, you have other numbers like that. Well, the Americans have their own system. And so when a French bank tries to wire money to an American bank, they always go like, I have no idea what number this is. This is meaningless. And it works the other way too. When you try from the U.S. to wire money to France, they're like, what are these numbers? Eventually they will figure it out. But you might have to talk to a couple of bank tellers too. Right.
And that's the experience we've had. It's worked, but it's taken it's not like making a teller window transaction. You have to sit down with them and work your way through. And what we found in one instance anyway is you could only do it during the hours that the international wire transfer office in New York or Atlanta or someplace was open, which was like 10 to 4. So you had to sort of fit into their schedule. But personally, avoid Craigslist.
Oh, yeah, avoid Craigslist, no matter what. Honestly.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's apartments or cooking pans, avoid Craigslist.
There will, of course, be some kind of cancellation policy that the agency imposes. It's usually not unreasonable. Something like 3 months out, you get all your money back, and anything under that, you get 50% back, and within the last month, you get nothing back. But understand what it is,
right.
So you don't get caught short there,
right. And honestly, more and more hotels that you book, you get to get a hotel that you can cancel, you have to really pay attention to that. And ask and just specify. I want a hotel that I can cancel within 24 hours or 48 hours or whatever you want to specify.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's paid. It's paid. That's it.
Yes. With the hotels, though, you often get your best rate by doing the non-cancelable rate. So if you really know you're going and you can afford to lose it if you didn't go, that's okay. I can afford to lose $150 on a hotel room. I can't afford to lose $3,500 on an apartment rental.
Yeah.
So I need to be very specific about what the cancellation policy is.
Yeah. Yep.
So I guess the next topic is, where do you want to stay? And some of this applies equally to hotels and apartments. But
yeah, because doesn't matter what you're going to choose, you're going to have to pick an area.
Right. And if it's your first time in the city, of course, in Paris, it's important to understand how the city is laid out in the 20 arrondissement, and they're in a spiral, and they're split sort of by the Seine into the left and right bank. So I always advise people who are going for the first time, get a good map, and just do a Google search, and we'll explain all about what this arrondissement system is and why it's important.
Yeah.
Because each of the 20 arrondissements is its own little village almost, and has its own unique characteristics, and also that determines how far you are geographically from what you're likely to want to see as a visitor.
Right.
You could stay, if you're going to Paris to live, you could very happily get a very nice apartment in the 10th or 11th arrondissement. But as a tourist, you want to be a little closer in.
Yeah.
And as you said earlier, if you stay in the Latin Quarter, which we happen to like, it's not 100% real people residence, but it's close. But it's physically close to what you want to see, so you can walk to a lot of things. You're not going to walk anywhere from the 11th arrondissement.
No.
So consider what they call the historic core, which is Le Marais in the 4th and the southern part of the 3rd arrondissement.
I think the newer you are to Paris, the closer you should stay to Notre Dame.
Exactly.
So if it's your first visit, and just get a hotel or a rental close to Notre Dame, within a 10-minute walk of Notre Dame in any direction, you'll be fine.
Exactly. And that will take you to the Marais or the Latin Quarter or Saint-Germain.
Exactly.
And there are dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of apartments there, and hotels as well.
Yeah.
The Marais and Ile Saint-Louis and Ile de la Cité, they tend to be older, sort of late 18th century buildings, and there is a difference between that and some of the newer ones on in the Latin Quarter and the 5th and the Saint-Germain and the 6th and the 7th. Mm-hmm. They're also largely residential, a little artsy. The right bank tends to be the 1st, the 2nd, and the 8th tend to be a little more business/commercial.
Yeah.
But also fine. Not as many apartments in the 1st, 2nd, and 8th, but they're there. Mm-hmm. And you can go further out, but they're going to be more remote. They're going to require more metro traffic. We found something kind of interesting. When you come in from the airport, one of the options, of course, is to take the I still want to call it the RER. I have trouble pronouncing RER in French.
Yeah, RER.
But it comes right through the city from north to south, and it stops right in the 5th arrondissement. And so it's an easy transfer. You don't have to necessarily, if you're carrying bags, you can get off the RER on Boulevard Saint-Germain and just walk to lots of places. And all 3 of the apartments that I've rented have fit that model. So I'm not saying that's
to change.
Exactly.
Changing RER lines is a huge deal. But if it's direct, you're fine.
Yeah. And also, as you say, it's you put it as staying near Notre Dame. I put it as staying near the Seine. If you can easily walk to the Seine, then you can easily walk to much of what you are there the first time, especially to see.
Well, but the Seine is a long river. You don't want
it is. Oh, it is. Yes, and exactly. But anywhere in that, if you're staying on. either on the two islands or within sight of the two islands on either the right or left bank, you're in the right area.
So one thing that you have to know, generally speaking, is that the Île de la Cité is an important business area for French people, for Paris.
Yes.
You have a lot of police activity happens there because they have the headquarters. And so in the daytime, it's bustling. Île de la Cité will have a lot of people, but at night, it just empties. It's only tourists that are left on the Île de la Cité. And it's the opposite with Île Saint-Louis. So nobody works in the Île Saint-Louis, but so during the day, it's quiet as can be. But then at night, people go to walk and go to the restaurants and the cafes and all that. So
yes,
it's kind of if you stay on the Île de la Cité per se, and I don't think there's that many choices there, but it's going to be noisy during the day necessarily because so many people and just the cop cars, I mean,
yes.
They all take off from there when they have to intervene somewhere. So
there's also a major hospital, I believe, on Île de la Cité. Yeah,
L'Hôtel Dieu, yeah.
And so that brings us to the choice of the street that you're on. You can choose a busy street. You can choose a quieter side street.
Yeah.
You can pick the street side of the building versus the courtyard side. Mm-hmm. A lot of the post-Haussmann era buildings are built around a courtyard. So many of the apartments, especially if they've been cut up into smaller apartments, only face the courtyard. That's not my choice. I'm a city boy, so I like the hustle and bustle of the city. I like to throw open the windows and see the cars going by and the guys in the green suits cleaning the street at 7 in the morning and all that. If you want quieter, that's fine. Look for something in the back. There's also the question of what, as you say, what goes on at night. We rented one apartment which was in and of itself was on a quiet street. But it overlooked sort of across a square this nightclub that we couldn't hear the music, but we heard people coming and going from the nightclub into the wee hours of the morning. It wasn't disturbing in this case, but for someone who's not used to city noise at night, just make your own choice.
Yeah,
there's no parking in any of these apartments. So you have if you have a car, which I would strongly recommend against, but if you have a car, you have to deal with these mysterious underground parking garages that most people don't even realize are there, but they are there, and you have to deal with that.
Money. They cost quite a bit of money. Yeah.
So my final point on the location is to actually go take a walk in the neighborhood. And you say, well, how can I do that if I'm not there? And there's this marvelous invention called Google Streets.
Yeah.
So all you do is go to Google Maps and find your street. And on the bottom right-hand corner, click on the little green man and drop him where you want to be. And there you are. You can take a walk in the neighborhood.
Yeah, Street View.
Yeah.
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 Absolutely. You need to do that.
Yeah, it works like a charm. Yeah, you can see the patisserie, you can see the building that you'll be in, you can see where the shops are.
And you can also see how fancy or not fancy it is.
Yes.
Because there are places in Paris. I shopped around for an apartment in Paris last summer, and I ended up, my cousin loaned me his apartment because he was going to be away at the same time, and he said, just stay where we are.
Can you give me his name?
I have 3 cousins in Paris, actually, but he's the only one nice enough to loan me his apartment for free. Anyway, so I gave up on looking at apartments in Paris, but I must admit, some of those places, once I looked at Street View, I was like, dudes, you're asking way too much money because your neighborhood, I can tell, is not that fancy, because I recognize all the stores and all, I'm like, it's not worth that much. So
Yes.
it just, sometimes you have to, but I was trying to be away from the center a little bit because we were staying a little longer. So in the center, close to Notre Dame, it's all going to be pretty much the same.
Right. And we went through exactly that this time, where this is going to be my third trip. So I had thought about staying a little bit further out, but then our friend that will be traveling with us, this is her first time, and we wound up staying again in the 5th arrondissement, not too far from Notre Dame, and I think it'll work out fine.
Yeah.
You now,
can't go wrong.
Right. What you have to do is really, once you pull up the listing for an apartment, sort of decode what it says. It will give you the size of the apartment in square meters. For those math challenged, if you multiply by 9, you'll get square feet, and it'll give you an idea of how big the apartment is. Now, you're not buying the place, but you still want to have some degree of comfort, and it's a starting point to compare. A very small studio might be 15 square meters. That's only a little over 100 square feet. That's the size of someone's average bedroom back home.
Yeah. That's very, very, very small.
An average one bedroom might be 40 or 50 square meters. Look for, if you want a studio, one bedroom, two bedrooms, how many people are staying there, how many occupants. It'll tell you how many it sleeps.
Yeah. I think 35 meters is a decent studio. If they say it's a studio and it's only 15 meters,
it's a closet.
Yeah, it's a large closet. That's all it is, really.
Yeah.
But of course, an average hotel room in Paris, by the center, by Notre Dame, is going to be 8 square meters or 9 square meters. Maybe.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. And again, studios may work well for you if you're traveling by yourself, or if you don't require a little bit of privacy or personal space, so to speak. That's the advantage, of course, of a one bedroom, is that one person can be in one room and the other person can be,
of course,
with his or her feet on the sofa in the other room, and you won't get on each other's nerves, especially for a longer stay. Again, 3 or 4 days, you can stay in a closet and it's okay.
That's
most
for young
apartments
people,
are non-smoking. Right? Yeah, right. Most apartments are non-smoking. Most do not allow pets, and most are not air conditioned.
Yeah.
So if you fall into one of those categories, you got to really drill down and see if they can find what you want. Some apartments can supply a crib if you so desire. The last one I rented actually had a crib in the closet, and it had a little kids' table and chairs in the living room, which was really cute.
Yeah,
it also inexplicably had a piano, but again, this was an owner-occupied apartment. Not an investment apartment, if you will. Mm-hmm. So you can find the apartment on the map and do your walk through Google Streets and see what's around you. One of the things that's important to me, and it may not be to everybody, but I think it's part of the city experience, is to know what kind of building you're in. As I'm sure you know, in the middle of the 19th century, the last half of the 19th century, Napoleon III and Baron Haussmann entered into a major rebuilding and restructuring of the city. That's what accounts for the broad, long, straight avenues and the so-called Haussmannian buildings, the ones with the stone facades and better interior detailing. They have ceilings and wall moldings and ceiling medallions around the light fixtures.
And they often have high
parquet
ceilings.
floors and all that. And you'll find... Go ahead.
They often have high ceilings.
Yes, and high ceilings,
so
too.
you have 9 or 10 foot ceilings.
Exactly.
Or sometimes even more.
Exactly. and large windows because they're typically, again, looking out onto the broad avenues.
Yep.
But there's also the 18th century buildings that are the quirkiest. The one I talked about with the spiral staircase was an 18th century building, and you'll find those in areas that housemen had less impact on.
Missed it.
Yeah, they missed. Yeah, you'll find those in Montmartre, in the Marais, and Ile Saint Louis, and they're fine. But again, they may be a little darker. Just understand, and of course, you also have what I call the 20th century buildings that were built as infill to buildings that had been torn down, and they're modern and they're efficient, and in my mind, they're boring. You could be staying in a garden apartment in Cleveland, and it would look just like that.
Yeah.
It all depends. If that means something to you, take it into account. If it doesn't, don't worry about it.
Yeah, and I want to add something to some of those 18th century buildings are dark, and also what you have to know is that French people are obsessed with saving electricity. And so they will almost always have timers on, any lighting that's in the halls are going to be on timers that are going to be very short. And there are a lot of people, if the light bulb burns out, they're not going to replace it for a year because they know the place. They can open the door without the light on.
Yes.
And they don't give a hoot. So,
yes, I've encountered the timers. You when you come into the front door, you have to make a mad dash for the elevator before the light goes out.
Yep, and so but nowadays we all have cell phones, so you'll need to use your cell flashlight.
Yes, definitely.
In those darker, older buildings, and it's like that all over France. Toulouse is the same. I'm like, why? Like, I have looked at an investment property, and even they know that there's going to be potential buyers coming, and they still won't turn on the light. Like, you are such an idiot.
Yes.
But anyway,
yes.
That's French people for you.
Yes. The floor number we talked a little bit about, but of course the so-called first French floor is what we would think of as the second. And here's the reason that's important. If, I'm of a certain age where I don't mind stairs, but I'm not going to walk up 6 flights.
Of course.
And so you really want to know. I'll walk up to the so-called first French floor, and those walk up 1 flight of stairs. That's fine.
Yeah.
But I don't want to walk up 3 or 4. And the other thing to think about is that there may still be some stairs involved, even though the building has an elevator. Because all of the elevators in these older buildings were retrofitted, they had to adapt to the building structure. So it's not at all uncommon, for example, to come in the entryway and walk up 2 or 3 stairs to an in-between level, which is where the elevator starts. And for most people, that 2 or 3 stairs is no big deal. But
that's fine,
if you have mobility issues, you need to know.
Yeah.
Almost all the buildings these days have what's called a passcode lock. There's a keypad out front, and your agency or landlord will give you the code. It's a 4 or 5 digit code that opens the front door, so you don't have to be responsible for a front door key, just the apartment key.
Yeah.
Some of the listings have floor plans. Some they all have photos. So look at the photos very carefully. As I said, air conditioning is rare, but Wi-Fi is very common these days.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm going to go back to what you were saying about keys.
Yes.
French locks are very different from American locks. If you're used to a just regular old, not high security lock in the US, you will probably be surprised by what it takes to open a French door. And I don't mean a decorative French door. I mean a door in France. because we often have very high security locks, and you have to kind of the door handle. Sometimes to lock, you have to pull the door handle all the way up, and then it can lock. Anyway, you want to have somebody show you. If you have any problem getting in, don't hesitate to call the rental agency. You want to have a number that you can call if you have a problem opening the door, because I would bet that half of the people who are not used to French keys, or maybe in New York, they use more high security locks. But those doors, sometimes I'm like, I don't know how to open that door. Well, by now I've been back 10 years, so now I've tried most of them and I can open most of them. But they can be a little bit startling.
They can be, and sometimes doors, you may think the door opens away from you, and the door actually opens toward you. And there will be double doors, so you have to decipher which is the door that actually works.
Yep.
And they will all, unless you make special arrangements, you'll normally only get one set of keys. So don't lose the keys.
No, don't.
And as you said, carry the number of the agent.
Yes.
With
even
you,
if
so
you're
that
just going to get a baguette.
Right.
Put that in your phone or something that you always have with you, because honestly, I can't tell you the number of times that I've been like, I don't understand. Like, we rented a hotel room not so long ago, and that hotel room happened to be across the street. So you had the lobby for the hotel, and then we crossed the street, and there was a door there, and I'm pretty sure it was in Uzès. But anyway, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
To open that door was like, I had to go get the guys and say, I don't know how to open your door. And then he tells me, oh, Americans can never open that door. I'm like, I'm not an American. I can play the card. I'm French. And I'm like, are you kidding? Because he heard me speaking English with my husband. So, he's assuming I'm American. So I just switched to French. I'm like, je suis française. Et j'y arrive pas. So, you have to, and they have to, they don't get it. It's like they don't understand that these doors are really bizarre. And there's no standard. They're all different. So anyway.
They are, yes.
Yeah.
So,
sorry about that. A little bit of a rant.
No. Another thing to look at it when you're looking at the pictures, and again, you're not buying the place, but take a good look at the quality of the furnishings. There are a lot of sort of low-end apartments that are furnished with IKEA furniture.
And
I have IKEA furniture too. I'm looking at bookshelves in my office right now that I bought from IKEA, and they're fine.
Sure.
But look for slip covers or a sheet on the sofa, as opposed to a nicely tailored sofa. It gives you an idea of what the quality is. And no, you're not buying it, but you don't want a lumpy sofa. Or a dirty sofa.
Yeah,
that's just covered by a sheet. So, look in the kitchen. You will. It's common to have washing machines. Washing machine could be in the bathroom as well. Dishwashers. Some yes, some no. But you'd be surprised that there are several rental apartments out there without ovens, because
that's true.
They feel that you're not going to cook.
That's
now,
true.
You're probably not going to make your Thanksgiving turkey there, but just make sure it has what you want.
Yeah, the in a small French kitchen, the microwave is the first thing to go.
Yes.
Well, depending on the age of the person, and then the oven. Or we have these tiny little toaster ovens. Some places.
Yes.
They're like the size of a small American microwave. And they're not really ovens. I mean,
right. And you're even though you're renting an apartment, you're probably not going to be cooking a 5-course meal, but just, assess the way you want to live in it and see if it has what you want.
And if you're somebody who's coming to France because you want to try cooking with all these nice ingredients, then it's important to you.
Yes. Now we come to what I consider the deal breakers, and that's the bed size. There are first of all, European bed sizes are a little bit different than American. They sort of refer to them as king, queen, and double. And king size beds are pretty rare because the apartments are so small. You'll see them in some of the upscale apartments. A queen size is actually a little wider than an American queen.
Yeah,
a couple of inches wider. The double bed is also an inch or two wider than an American double bed.
But it's still very small.
The double bed is the most common thing you'll see.
Yeah.
So if you're Americans not used to sleeping in a double bed, like we are, look for at least the queen.
Yeah.
Or you'll be very unhappy.
Yeah, and I won't put up with a double bed either. So the sizes are 140, that's the double bed.
Mm-hmm.
I need at least a 160. So that's a queen size kind of thing.
Right.
And then the king size, that's 180. Some of them can be up to 2 meters.
Okay.
But they're unusual. Yeah, but you could ask for, 160. You want a 160 bed, or it's too small.
Yeah, and generally that's called out in the listing, so you have to look for that.
And the other thing is pillows.
Oh, okay.
See, your deal breaker is the bed size. My deal breaker is the pillows. Hotel, I can go ask for more pillows.
Ah, yes.
Or but in a apartment like this, I know French people who sleep with one pillow. Not enough. I need pillows. So I ask, if I'm going someplace, I ask how many pillows. So you will find fewer pillows than what you're used to in America.
And again, downside to an apartment, you can't call down to the front desk and say, "Can you send up 2 more pillows?"
Exactly.
And I don't think I've ever seen that listed in the. I've never seen it quantified in the listings. It'll say, of course, sheets and blankets and pillows and towels, but it won't tell you how many or anything like that.
Or if they're any good.
Yeah.
I ask. I'm terrible. I ask.
Something that's most Americans find very unusual in a lot of Parisian apartments is the separate water closet. And by separate, I don't mean like in many American homes where there's a little potty room within the bathroom, but separate meaning the water closet is down the hall. So just understand what it is. Typically, you'll have the so-called bathroom as a shower or a tub and
with a sink. Yeah. And
then the toilet and usually a little baby sink in a separate water closet down the hall.
Right.
There is an advantage to that in that it does allow 2 people to some degree get ready at the same time.
Yes.
So don't look at it as a downside, just different.
So French people think it's filthy to go to the bathroom where you brush your teeth. Okay.
Okay.
So we don't.
Okay. That explains it.
Yeah. So that's why even when you renovate a house in France, they tell you, do not knock down that wall. It will make the house much harder to...
Oh, interesting.
Because this happened to us when we bought our house. We have the same, a room that's like the shower and the sink and the bathtub, and then next to it is the potty. And I wanted to knock down that wall so we could put more furniture. And everybody said, no, don't do that. It'll make it impossible to rent or sell in the future. And I listened eventually. Because it's a French thing. We want the bathroom, the toilet part separate from the rest.
Right. The last thing to look at when you're looking at the listing is the reviews from the past clients, and not even so much what they say, because they're all going to say, "Oh, it's wonderful. We had a great time in Paris. We can't wait to go back." Yeah. What you want to be sure is that there are past reviews, that somebody has actually stayed there before.
Yeah.
And obviously you should read them, but more important is just the fact that there is a track record for renting this apartment.
Yeah.
So what it all comes down to is it's a variation on what some folks in business call the fast, good, or cheap paradigm. You can have something fast and cheap, but it won't be any good, or fast and good, but it won't be cheap. So it's the same with the apartment rentals. The major choices are location, amenities, and cost. And you can have 2 out of the 3. You can have good location, good amenities, but you're going to pay for it.
Yeah.
You can have a good location and low cost, but it's going to be a bare bones apartment, and only you can decide on that. So
yeah. But it's important to think about it.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Now, the last thing is checking in and out, because again, there's no concierge or front desk. There's a process here. What you will get after you've done the booking is an email from the owner or the agent agreeing on a time to meet. Allow time, if you're coming from De Gaulle Airport, allow time to get through customs, of course, and however you get there, whether it's a hired car or cab or bus or train, figure out what time you realistically will be at the apartment.
I think
they'll meet you there.
Yeah, and I don't think you should ever tell people you'll meet them any less than an hour and a half after you land.
Oh, at least.
That would be the minimum, if you know what you're doing.
At least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
I would say even 2 hours would be cutting it close. Yeah.
Yep.
Because no matter what form of transportation you take, the transportation itself is 40 minutes to an hour to get to central Paris from the airport.
Yeah.
Then you have to add in customs and luggage and all that stuff. Usually the agent will ask you to call them when you're on your way. And cell phones, that's pretty easy. Yeah.
Customs in France are still much faster than customs in the U.S., but still, you never know. They might start asking questions someday.
Right. They'll have your deposit. However, if you've arranged for a deposit in cash, or the last apartment I rented, the deal was supposed to be the deposit was to be in euros, and it was something like 1,800 euros. Ooh. And so it's not that I minded carrying 1,800 euros, but I didn't want to leave the country and have 1,800 euros in my hand, because I wasn't going to pay for it to be converted back to dollars.
Yeah.
Some will do traveler's checks, and with this last apartment, we asked the landlord, the owner, could we do this in dollars? Because in theory, you're just going to get it back. And she said yes. And then, but the odd thing is, when we showed up at the apartment and started to give her the deposit, which we had negotiated, she said, "Oh, you look like nice people. Don't worry about it." So we didn't have to do anything, which was rather nice.
But again, that cash for nothing.
Yeah. I wouldn't count on something like that. There will almost always be some kind of house rules book or binder in the apartment. It'll tell you the do's and don'ts, and sometimes give you recommendations on local cafes and patisseries. It's always good to look for, and how the washing machine works, because the front panel is going to be in French. So unless you know the French words for stop and start, then you're in trouble.
Yes, and French clothes dryers are evil. They will wrinkle your clothes to death. If you can avoid, and I mean the ones that people have in their homes, okay? If you go to a laundromat, the bigger clothes dryers in the laundromats are the same as in America. But the smaller ones that people have in their homes, you don't want to put anything fragile in there.
At least the combination washer dryers.
Oh, even worse.
Oh, okay.
No, don't dry. Just wash and hang. Don't dry.
Yeah. There may also be some special requests. This last apartment, as we were leaving, as the owner was leaving, she said, please make sure to water the geraniums in the front window. So I said, sure, okay. And now, is there anything that's going to make you feel more at home than watering the flowers in the window? So, which was fine.
Yeah.
Well, and then go shopping.
She didn't leave a cat behind.
No. Then go shopping.
Yeah, then you go shopping for some nice groceries, and you're home. You have arrived.
Right. It's probably a little two-wheeled market basket in the apartment. You could take that, or you bring a string bag, and you look like you fit right in. If you want a Kmart, there's actually a Kmart in Paris, except you'll find it's a little Korean grocery store in the arrondissement. And if you really have a craving for American food, there's a little food shop in the fifth arrondissement, I think, or fourth. No, it's in the fourth. It's called Thanksgiving. So if you want a package of Oreos,
anymore you can find Oreos at French grocery stores.
They actually fly in bagels every day.
Wow. But there's very few things that you can't find at a French grocery store anymore. Bagels, most stores have them. Not all of them. But yes. Really? Oreos, almost all stores have them.
Yeah, that I could say.
One thing that's still hard to find is chili powder.
Okay.
And I can't find coffee creamer. I like the dry coffee creamer, the powder stuff.
Yes.
That I have to import from the U.S. But I used to have a long list of things I had to import from the U.S. Now it's a very short one.
I bring my own coffee because I find French coffee ghastly. So I bring a pound of coffee, Starbucks American coffee, and I'm happy. But,
I think people are really, really picky about their coffee. You like what you're used to, and anything different isn't going to be making you happy. So maybe if you're going to be there a while, bring your own.
Right.
That is wise.
On the way out, again, you need to set a time with the owner or the agent to walk through the apartment and give him his keys back and get your deposit back. Some may ask you in the house rules to restock certain stuff, and I don't mean paper towels and toilet paper and stuff like that. But if you're in an apartment, for example, where the refrigerator, the food is stocked and you use the last bit of salt, it would be polite to go buy a new container of salt, something like that. They may ask you to do some light housekeeping, strip the sheets, take out the garbage, and just to make it easier for the cleaning crew that's coming in.
Well, especially if they're not coming in the same day. It can be stinky if you don't do those things.
Right. So
very good. So do you think you'll ever go back to a hotel, or are you now?
Well, again, for 2 or 3 or 4 days, sure, I do a hotel. We're going to Provence for a week after the month in Paris, and we're not 100% sure what we're doing yet, but it looks like it's going to be a hotel in Avignon, and then we're going to take day trips from there. But again, it'll only be 5 or 6 nights. So we had thought about looking for apartments there. I'm sure there are, but I said, let's take the easy way out. So
in Provence, it's actually there's a funny thing that happens is that Provence, the rentals are very expensive in the summer. So not even the summer, but starting in April through October, it's going to be quite expensive. And then the other months of the year, they'll practically give it away for free.
Oh, interesting.
So you can get inexpensive accommodations in Provence if you go the right time of year. But, like French people who rent year round, they don't have this fluctuation in rents. But the people who go just for a few weeks, they do that. They do see that. So, so I want to finish up. I just want to argue a little bit against going to an apartment.
Sure.
Just so people think about it. If you have an apartment, you might be tempted to stay somewhere a little longer than you need to. Just because you get, some apartments, they won't rent for a minimum of less than a week. which I understand, because they have to clean the place and, all these things. So yeah, okay, I get that. But there are some places in the world where you really don't need to be there for a week unless you have a car and you can then go explore from there. So the value of the hotel is, well, we've seen all we needed to see in this place. We're moving on. It's easier to do that. So for people who already know that they know and like France and they want to spend a week in Avignon, for example, well, that's great. Do that. But if it's your first time, maybe you shouldn't stay as long as all that. What do you think?
I agree. It depends what your mission is and how long you're going to stay. And for this trip coming up, especially where it's going to be a month, we have already recognized that there will be days when we wake up and say, let's not do anything particular today. Well, if it's raining, we'll stay in and read a book this morning and wait for it to clear. Whereas if I only had 5 days in my first trip to Paris, I'd be out the door at 8 o'clock in the morning, rain or shine.
Unless it's a tornado.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I have sort of a side mission here that I haven't talked about. I'm a hobbyist photographer, and we do photo essay books on every trip we've ever taken, documenting in a good deal of detail not only what we saw but how we felt about it. And I'm as a sort of side project this time, I'm working on let's call it a coffee table book on the left bank. I really want to focus on what people don't often see in the left bank, Chinatown in the 13th arrondissement. It's just the mosque, the things that people don't realize are there. That they it's as much a part of Paris as cafes and the boulangeries. So it's going to take time to do that, and that's why one of the reasons we're going to be there for a month. But I encourage people to try it. I think it'll give them, your listeners, a different perspective.
Absolutely. And I think you're hardly the only one who does this. I mean, we have I have interviewed a lot of people who mention that that's what they do.
Yes.
And it's, it's obviously a very viable option for a lot of people, especially if they plan on staying a little bit longer. Right. All right. Thank you so much, Phil. You have been a delight to listen to. And also, it's really good because you sent me these fabulous detailed notes that I'm probably going to reproduce verbatim.
Feel free.
Because everybody will want to see them, all your...
I'm on your Join Us in France closed group Facebook page. So if anybody has questions, they can be happy to answer them if I can.
Yeah, talk back, everybody. Let us know once the episode is posted. Share your experiences and your, what you like about it and what you don't like about it.
Great.
Very
Au revoir, Annie.
Au revoir. Merci beaucoup. Thanks again, Phil, for sharing so many great tips with us. And now on with my fun short talk with Sue Walsh, who was on the inaugural tour and shares her thought about how things went and some of the things that she particularly liked. Let's talk about this tour we had, Sue. You seem to be perfectly happy.
Can I come back?
Yeah, I want it back too. I want it back, except for the bit where I lost my camera. But except for that bit, I want it all back.
Yeah. Well, it must have been a success if you guys are thinking of doing one again in October so soon. So that's good.
Yes. I think we need to try and do a couple this year and then maybe 3 or 4 next year. We'll see. If people don't want to do this, we'll know soon enough, right? So this is important for us to try this. So what did you think? What were the highlights? What were some things that you think maybe we should do differently?
Oh, I think in terms of highlights, I was really up for all of it because, first of all, traveling on my own, which I don't normally do, was just such a treat. And being interested in art and art history and also just loving the city of Paris we saw so many museums and so many art galleries that it was just such an absolute treat for me. It was fantastic. So I would have to say that the art galleries were probably my favorite.
Yeah.
Because I got to visit art galleries that I normally wouldn't get to visit with my family. The last time we were in Paris, I had so wanted to go to the Picasso Museum when it was just open after renovation, and I just couldn't make it there because we just didn't have time. We only had 3 or 4 days that time in Paris. And so it was such a treat for me to get to go to the Picasso Museum this time around.
Oh, that's good. I thought it was really very nice. It was nicer than what I expected.
Right. The other treat for me was going to Pompidou because I'd never been there before. It was, I took art history right through high school, and so to walk through all of the really modern 20th century art was just like deja vu.
It's true. It's eerie. You to be able to see this stuff up close is really fun.
Right. And a lot of 20th century art is just so big.
Yeah.
That you really kind of get to walk around it and walk up to it, and it's bigger than you, and it's just such a crazy experience.
Right.
Yeah. I had been to Orsay before, so Orsay felt to me like coming back and visiting old friends, which was a treat too. The Rhoden Museum, I wasn't really a huge fan of Rhoden before.
Yeah.
But when I listened to the podcast with you and Elise, it's like, oh, crap, now I have to go and see the Rhoden Museum because it's going to be fantastic. And I know that I cannot miss it. And that's a beautiful museum just because the gardens are so peaceful. And we'd had a busy day leading up to that. And so to just see the museum and then just go and sit in the gardens and have a cup of tea, have a little dessert. They have a really nice cafe there. So
Right. Sue, I'm just realizing I didn't ask you to introduce yourself. So that's because I know you now. So, but why don't you tell us just a couple of things about you, because people will have no doubt heard your accent by now. So,
let's see. I am currently living in San Diego, but I was born in Southern Africa. My husband and I met in high school, and we ended up getting married in Canada, of all places. We lived on the west coast of Canada for a number of years, and then moved down to San Diego, which was a little bit closer climate-wise to our hometown in South Africa.
Yeah.
So we've been in San Diego now probably about 15 years, and this is very much home for us. Yeah. I'm a technical...
Yes, you're a technical writer, and you're a well-traveled person.
Fairly well-traveled. We travel to Europe quite a bit. We have 2 boys. We had our boys a little later in life, so we have an 11-year-old and a 5-year-old. And they're big travelers too, because we've traveled with them since they were tiny. And they don't always appreciate it, but we know that it's built things kind of into their community that they wouldn't normally have if they didn't travel. So we travel probably every year or every second year with the boys to Europe. Wow. Next year we hope to take them back to South Africa for the first real visit. So that'll be interesting.
Yeah, that's cool. That's so cool. Well, and the thing is, Sue you started saying you're a technical writer, but for GoPro. So you know how to use those GoPros really well. You taught me how to do some stuff with an app that's actually developed in Paris, but that GoPro owns. Anyway, it was really fun. What was the name of the app again? I can't remember.
The app's called Quick. And if for those of you who are on the Join Us in France Facebook page, you'll notice that a lot of the videos we posted from the tour I made with the Quick app, and it's QUIK.
It's really cool. I haven't had a chance to, my life is so crazy busy. I haven't had a chance to really play with it yet, but I should do it. Like over this weekend, I have promised myself tomorrow, Saturday, I am not touching the computer over the weekend. I might not even finish publishing the episode, but I'm not touching the computer. And so we'll be going to the beach and I'll try the app. So that's my...
So the fun thing about that app is that you don't have to use it with GoPro content. You can use it with your iPhone or your Android phone content. So, you can just import the videos and photos that you want to use, and then it kind of automatically makes you a draft of a video. And then you can go in there and tweak it, and you can choose different music and choose different effects. But it's a really quick way to make a really cool video. So yeah, we used that when we were in Paris, and it was a lot of fun because I would get back to my hotel room in the evenings and just, grab all the top pictures and video clips that I'd taken during the day and just make a quick video and post it to Facebook.
It was lovely. It was really fun to have you for many reasons. And the other thing that was really interesting about you is that in your case, your husband bought the tour for you as a surprise.
Yes. So it was kind of funny because I had put my back out around the time of my birthday, which is at the end of February. And I was in a lot of pain and I was lying on the couch, and they came to me, my husband and the two boys, and they, happy birthday, and gave me this card. And inside it, he had printed up the fact that he had purchased this Paris tour for me to go solo it ended up being about 10 days. I was away all by myself, and it was totally unexpected. And he knows me so well. He knows that there's so many things I would love to do in Paris that I never get to do. And when he's been listening to the podcast for years, and he knows Annie and Elise pretty well. And so when they offered this first tour, he thought of me immediately, and such a fan. Bought it for me for
it was so fun to be in on the surprise too, because he wrote to me and he said, are you going to take good care of my wife? I'm like, of course I'm going to take good care of your wife. And, it was fun. It was really fun, and he had me record a little audio snippet to tell you. Anyway, I had fun playing along with that. I think that's very romantic, even though you weren't together during the tour. I think it's fabulous that he wanted to surprise you that way.
And he got such a kick out of everything that I was experiencing. I'd post pictures to Instagram, and I'd send him little video clips. And one of my sons is really into art. And so I would send them little videos of, Monet's or what's his name? Jackson Pollock paintings.
Yeah.
And my kids would just get such a kick out of it. So,
well, I think some of the modern art, the kids can't put any concepts behind it, but they could easily, imitate it.
Right. They can. So yeah, my son does art classes, and they follow a lot of these artists, and they do exercises that are related to different artists. So, when I could send him a Monet picture of water lilies, and they'd done that project at school, it was just he got a big kick out of that. So it was fun.
That's great.
But, yeah, I think it was just such a pleasure to be in Paris for a longer period of time for me. I got there about 3 days early. Mm-hmm. And because I don't really deal well with jet lag, so I kind of padded it a little bit on the beginning. I got to spend some time in the city by myself, and just spending a good 10 days there, you get a really different sense of a city.
Yeah.
As opposed to being there a day or two. So that was just a wonderful kind of once-in-a-lifetime experience, honestly. It sounds cliched, but it really was. To get a real sense of the layout of the city, and we've spent time in Europe before in smaller villages. We've spent, for example, last summer we spent 2 weeks in Provence, just staying in one place, and you really get a better sense of culture and of language and of food and all those kinds of things, which I think are really important.
Yeah. Oh, and you were excellent at navigating through the city. I would say of the group, you were the one who was just the most like, oh yeah, I can find this. You didn't think twice. You were very good at that.
When you get that opportunity to have all of these experiences on your own and go and do anything you want to do at any time of day and night, I'm going to get there regardless. I don't care if I take the the very first time I got on the metro, which was literally a day after I got there. What is that station that's just north of where we were?
So Saint-Michel is there. Odéon is close.
Next one up.
Whoa, you're testing my memory now.
I picked the worst station to climb on for my very first metro ride.
Crédit Léal?
No. It starts with a C for sure. Anyway, I was taking a minibus tour out to Giverny, and I had to get to the starting point, and it was just too far for me to walk, and so I had to take the metro. And I picked the worst station to start out at. But I got there and got home after a kind of a long day, pretty jet lagged. So, yeah.
You were very, very good. And like everybody else on the tour, you were very eager to experience everything, which I thought was just outstanding. Because, Yeah, some people are kind of not so sure that they want to venture out. And even though you were on a tour, you were there early, you ventured out to do a few things by yourself. Mm-hmm. And so that was really good. Châtelet, maybe? Châtelet?
Châtelet, there you go.
There you go, Châtelet.
The nightmare of Châtelet.
Well, it's Châtelet-Léal is the name of that station. So I was both correct and incorrect.
Right. So, yeah. The reason that I wanted to venture out is that there were a couple of things that I really wanted to do that weren't on the tour. And I'm not necessarily suggesting that you do put them on the tour, but probably the most amazing thing that I did that I think could be incorporated into the tour was to actually see a performance at Opera Garnier.
Yes.
When I realized we were going to Opera Garnier, but that we were touring the building, which is wonderful and fantastic in and of itself. And having taken a lot of dance when I was younger, I desperately wanted to see something there. And so I hopped on their website and found that there was a matinee performance the Saturday before the tour started. So I went to that. And as it turned out, there were two other ladies on the tour who had seen exactly the same performance the night before me because they also wanted to see a performance. So
that's great.
Maybe that is something you want to include next time.
Yeah, if we can. We included a classical music concert, but maybe a performance at Opéra Garnier would be very, very nice. Or maybe give a choice.
Right.
If we can find times that would work.
Right. So the matinee is a really good idea because I think it started at 2:30 in the afternoon. Mm-hmm. So maybe you could do, a matinee performance and then do a little bit of a tour afterwards or whatever. But the thing that was so amazing to me was once you get inside, I had a seat which was kind of up on the second floor in one of the boxes on the one side.
Right.
And it's an experience unlike any, you feel like you're in a Victorian kind of novel. Mm-hmm. There's a lady with a key who actually lets you into your box.
Wow.
Yeah. And you walk in and there's this red velvet box with these upholstered chairs and you sit there and you feel like you should be in a ball gown or something. Yeah.
I'm sure you were because you'd never go out with a ball gown.
And you look up and there is this magnificent chandelier and the ceiling painted by Marc Chagall.
Yeah.
And then the performance starts and these beautiful velvet curtains go up and the ballet was absolutely stunning. So that's something I highly recommend. But I did enjoy the tour that Elise did too of the Opera House. The decoration of that place is just incredible.
Yeah, yeah. And what did you think of the food? Did you seem to enjoy the food very much? Is there something we should...
For me, the food was perfect because we got to try a bunch of different things. I loved every restaurant we went to. I liked the fact that we had probably half of our meals were in what you would call standard French restaurants with, standard French cuisine. Mm-hmm. So you really got to experience a little bit of everything, both for lunch and for dinner. The restaurants we were at were perfect. And then, the slightly more kind of ethnic food that we tried.
Yep.
The Moroccan restaurant we went to was outstanding. The decoration in that place is amazing. Yeah. And Las de Falafel that we went to for lunch the one day where we just lucked out and walked right in and got a table. That food was amazing.
Yeah, it is good, isn't it?
Yeah. My husband jokes with me because I posted a lot of pictures to Instagram of the waiters of Paris. And I've got to say that the waiters of Paris are quite something.
Especially the ones at Las du Falafel. They were interesting, weren't they?
Thank you. I'm glad I'm not the only person that noticed that.
Yeah, they were interesting.
Well, and then we went to the restaurant that what do you call it? The Brittany restaurant. I'm just
la crêperie de Jocelyn.
Crêperie Jocelyn, right?
Yes.
And Steve and I we decided to share a Grand Marnier crepe.
Yeah.
And this young guy comes out with this flaming crepe, and it's just so crazy. It's like you're in Paris, and here comes this waiter with a flaming crepe and puts it down in front of you. Like the restaurant experiences in Paris are just something else.
Yeah. I think we lucked out on a lot of the restaurants. I mean, we spent a lot of time choosing them too.
True, and I think you guys did a fantastic job.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
The only thing, I felt for me. my attitude was, you know what, I'm in Paris, and normally if I start doing the math between euro and dollars, I probably wouldn't spend that if I just went out in my neighborhood for dinner.
Mm-hmm.
We're in Paris, so
yeah,
I'm going to enjoy the food, right? And I think that you had the right kind of balance of people being able to go and do their own thing and not join for dinner or not join for lunch, depending on their budgets and their food preferences. So is flexibility there? I think, as you've said in multiple podcasts, people who have very restrictive diets are going to have a tough time in Paris.
Yes.
So they, you probably, for a couple of meals, they're going to want to go and get something from a supermarket that suits their diet.
Exactly.
And it's just the way it is.
Yeah, I think especially vegan and people who, even vegetarian, although you can usually handle vegetarian, but vegan is really, really hard.
Right, and increasingly a lot of Americans are eating gluten-free, which I'm not sure how difficult that is in Paris.
Well, that would be, I think that would be hard. I don't know. I haven't tried it. I've talked to somebody who's a member of the Join Us in France close group on Facebook to come on the show to talk to me. I think we've got it lined up for in a few weeks from now. So
that's great.
I'll learn more about that. But yeah, I think that's one of the difficulties with Paris is everywhere you go, you're going to find duck on the menu and beef and fatty foods, really, is what it is. We like.
I mean, here's the thing. I'm not a big duck fan. I find it too rich.
Uh-huh.
I shouldn't really say that because I love lamb, and that's really rich too. But I found it quite easy to avoid duck. There was always something else, whether it's a vegetarian option or a fish option or, chicken or. Yeah. I didn't find it difficult to avoid, even though there is a lot of it.
You didn't feel like you were forced to have quack all the time.
No.
That's good. That's good. All right. So do you have any words of wisdom for people who want to do this either with us or by themselves? Something you learned maybe that you would like to share?
Probably. I think something that we haven't really discussed is that on a week-long tour, your hotel becomes really important. Mm. If you're not happy with your hotel, it's really going to impact your trip. And my hotel was fantastic. It was very central to everything we were going to do.
Do you want to tell us which one you chose?
Yes, I stayed at Hotel du Levant, which is right there in the Latin Quarter. It literally took me a minute to walk to our meeting point every day. It was just on the road. I didn't have a fantastic view, but it was on the quiet side of the building, so I didn't have loud restaurant noise, which was great.
That's nice, yeah.
And I had a little fridge in my room, which I found after a couple of days, I really didn't feel like eating the breakfast that was in the hotel, which came with free breakfast.
Yeah.
So I would just go out to the Monoprix and pick up some yogurt. I picked up some milk because I like drinking tea sometimes. Mm-hmm. So I picked up milk and yogurt and a couple things and just kept them in the fridge. And then when I woke up in the morning, I didn't feel like getting up early and going and having breakfast. I would just, I had that opportunity. And a lot of people on the tour didn't have a fridge in their rooms.
Yeah, I didn't.
And they actually mentioned it a couple of times. Gee, I wish I had a fridge. So that's a little tip to look for. The staff at that hotel were fantastic, really friendly and very helpful. I think.
Do you remember how much you paid per night?
I don't, because my husband paid for it.
Nice husband.
I want to say I think it was about $175 a night.
Okay.
I think that's what it was when I cleared out the bill.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's on the higher end of what most tour members paid.
Right. I think so. But I got to say that it really made a difference to have a comfortable place to go back to at the end of a long day of walking, because we were walking quite a bit every day.
Yeah. It's very important to.
It was that. I'm trying to think if there was anything else.
And I'll put the recommendation for that hotel on the hotel page of Addicted to France, so that people can.
It's very convenient,
choose it.
And it has great reviews on TripAdvisor.
Yeah.
There was one other thing. What was it? Yes, I think that when people decide that they want to do this tour, look at the rough itinerary that you guys put out and say, well, is there anything else in Paris that I really want to do? And then, as I said, either pad your trip with a couple days at the beginning or at the end, depending on how you deal with jet lag. I did a trip out to Giverny. I went with Amy to Versailles.
Yep.
And I did the ballet at the Opera Garni. Those are the three things that I really wanted to do that weren't on the tour. And, and I think everybody can customize that for themselves and do the things that they do.
Yeah, and of course we can help out, if people want to have some recommendations of how to get to a certain place or, what else they can do. We can obviously offer recommendations.
Right. And I was a bit apprehensive because I had never used the metro or the train system. Mm-hmm. So that was a silly little thing that I was nervous about before the trip. But we took the train out to Versailles. We took the metro everywhere. And then, as I said, I took that minibus tour out to Giverny, and it was just so easy.
Yeah.
Just to do a little bit of research beforehand, make sure you know where you need to go. The other little tip that I used, I didn't have international Wi-Fi while I was there. So I was I didn't have international cellular service while I was there.
Right.
So what I would do in the morning, I would kind of figure out where we were going. I'd look at it on my phone when I was at the hotel, and I'd just take a screenshot of around there on the map. Mm-hmm. And if I was taking the metro, I would kind of screenshot the route. And I just had it on my phone, and I could refer to that whenever I needed to.
Yeah.
So that I never really got lost.
Yeah. Well, sometimes, anybody, even me in Paris, I get turned around sometimes. I walk a little bit in one direction. I'm like, oh, no, wrong direction. Turn around.
Yeah.
If you do have data, City Mapper is an excellent app for Paris. It works brilliantly well. So
yeah,
that would be my recommendation.
With AT&T, I got with the Passport program. And that gives you for $40, I think, for the time that you're away, that gives you limited data, limited calling, and unlimited texting, which was perfect because you guys were using text to contact us.
Yeah.
I could call if I absolutely needed to.
Sure.
And then, I just had limited data. If I was stuck somewhere, I could turn data on and do a bit of mapping and then turn it off again, and I was fine.
People are really freaked out about data usage when they're abroad, but if you don't watch YouTube videos and if you don't check Facebook and stream all these videos on Facebook,
right?
Even if you turn on data for a map or something, it's not a lot of data. It's not going to bankrupt you. It might cost you a few dollars, but it's not worth worrying so much about. The problem is with the people who run into trouble with that is people who have teenagers who are constantly watching YouTube videos while abroad. That will just kill you.
Right.
Other than videos, it's really not, that big of a deal. So,
yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Sue. It was a pleasure getting to know you and a pleasure to have you to talk about this. All right, Sue, thank you so much. And, hopefully I'll see you again. I don't know. I hope so. Even if it's not on a tour, I would love to see you again.
All right, Annie. Take care.
All right. You too. Au revoir.
Bye. Au revoir.
My thanks to the new listener who signed up to support the show on Patreon this week. Thank you, Anna Belkina. And thank you to the 59 patrons who support the show month after month. I want you to know how much I appreciate your continued support. To support the show on Patreon, go to patreon.com/join us. Patreon, join us without any dashes or spaces or anything. I also want to thank all the people who get in touch with me to offer to record an episode with me about their experience in France. I couldn't do the show without all of you sharing your knowledge. So thanks again, Phil, and thanks again, everybody who reaches out. If you want to share some of your knowledge about France on the Join Us in France Travel Podcast, send me an email, annie@joinusinfrance.com, or ping me on the Join Us in France closed group on Facebook. Merci, au revoir. Thanks for listening to the show. To find out about tours offered by Elise and I, visit addictedtofrance.com. I also want you to think about subscribing to the Join Us in France email list. It only goes out about once a month, but that's where I send out extras about things that I find interesting about France. Sometimes it's a list, sometimes it's a recipe, sometimes it's a discount code. These are all things that I enjoy as a Francophile and that I think you will enjoy too. Also, if you enjoy the show and would like to support it, please visit joinusinfrance.com/support. You can contact me via email, annie@joinusinfrance.com, or you can also call the voicemail box at 801-806-1015. Thanks again. Talk to you soon. Au revoir. The Join Us in France Travel Podcast is written and produced by Annie Sargent and copyright 2017 by Addicted to France. It is released under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives license.